We're live.
We're live.
Hey! Hello everyone, welcome to Espace Tricot's second Knit Night Live. We're here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada with our fabulous staff, and we're so glad that you can join us. My name is Lisa.
Melissa.
And we're the co-owners of Espace Tricot. So before we get started, we just wanted to do a little round table and have our staff introduce themselves, and also they're going to let you know what they're wearing and what yarn they use to knit it. And also wanted to mention we have a few new people, and Françoise is not here, our store manager. It was her son's birthday today, so she's probably watching us at her son's birthday party. So anyway, so Catherine, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Okay, hi, I'm Catherine. I'm wearing, I had to look it up because I couldn't remember. It's Shanakiel. It's a shawl by Carol Feller, and I knit it with the color bundle, an Untitled Bell, and some leftover Malabrigo stock that I had from years ago.
Okay. Hi, I'm Carla, and I'm wearing an Alira shawl. I'm kind of cheated because this is a sample from the store. But yeah, this was knitted with Artfeel and Nuances. Nuance. Sorry, my French.
Artfeel Bell.
Artfeel Bell, yeah.
And Julia Slay Nuance.
Yeah,
the Lizzy finger.
And it looks so pretty on me. Thank you.
It was such hard work to knit that.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn, and I'm wearing the Lizzy Sweater from Julie Weisenberg.
Yeah,
the coconuts from Coconuts, and mine I've done with the Abu Tsuzumi silk and Drops Lace Alpaca, and I did it a little bit longer, so mine goes down all the way down to here.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
That's the one that you did last time, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, because Melissa you did yours a little cropped, and yours is longer, and it looks great both ways.
It's very comfortable.
I like the way those points come down at the front on them.
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Sasha, and I am wearing the Smooth Move from Stephen West, and this is knit up with Tanis Red Label and Artfeel Bell.
What are the colorways? Do you remember?
I have no idea.
That one is
this
Shadow?
one is
Shadow?
Or Frost.
No, this one's Tanis,
Frost.
and I think the border also is from Tanis, the bright blue. I don't remember, but these two.
I think that's Frost, definitely from
Deep Sea.
Tanis there.
It could be Deep Sea.
Is it on your Rav?
Denim, and this is all. These two are Bell, and then the other two are Tanis. So.
Okay, so after the last Knit Night Live, we didn't actually do show notes, but I think what we'll do after
do it
this
this time?
one is I'm going to ask everybody to send me their sample and what they knit it with and the colorways, and I'll just add it in the down bar.
Yeah.
And what's interesting with your Sasha is that you did a single ply with a plied yarn.
Exactly.
So sometimes people don't like to mix single ply and ply, but it looks perfect together. It's more for which colors you want it to go together.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah. And this was originally knit from my mother, but then I stole it. It was for her, and sorry.
And just a little note that Sasha and Catherine are back after a maternity leave because, they were off having babies. So they're back with us, and then some others might be leaving soon with babies to be, but
Hi, I forgot my name. I'm Aaliyah, and I'm wearing the Encasta sweater dress
Stand
in
up, Emilia.
Brooklyn Tweed Arbor.
Nice.
Mona, have you ever knit a dress?
For Hannah. No.
For Hannah.
Well, you've made some tunics.
So I think, Amelia, you're the only one who's actually knit a dress.
I've also knit 2 skirts.
Okay, there you go. So
I
you're
knit a
really
skirt.
you have a
Yeah,
fashion.
you knit a
skirt.
skirt.
Yeah, Mona, you knit that, what was it called?
I don't know, from Nitty.
Yeah, the one from Nitty, the runner or something.
Diagonal.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
That was the split?
Side splitter?
Side splitter or
Side
something.
splitter.
Yeah.
Lane splitter.
That's it.
How many people does it take to remember me? Great.
Hi, my name is Chloe, and I'm wearing a raglan top-down pullover sweater, and it's done in Artfeel Bell. That's the charcoal. Oh yeah, sure. And then the color is the Julia Slay Les Nuances kit.
I like your side here.
Yeah.
That little
Yeah,
detail.
nice.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Like a reverse
Fun.
seam.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A faux seam.
Faux seam. Gorgeous.
And Chloe's our weekend manager, for those of you who don't know.
So I'm Melissa, and I'm wearing. I feel so boring going
I
after.
know. That's okay. It's our shtick, Melissa.
Yeah, exactly. An easy folded poncho it's a Church Mouse Yarns pattern, and it's in Lang Nova, which we don't carry anymore. So
You could do that, like get that same effect in drops there, you think?
oh, anything.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
anything.
no, because Lang Nova was
DK.
like
Is
a
it-
DK.
Yeah, but the drops.
It was a real worsted.
It's
Yeah.
a worsted.
But there are so many you could do it in.
So I got in trouble because I came wearing nothing, and so I whipped up.
Well, she was dressed.
I
Nothing knit.
I don't know. It's funny. Ever since my wrist, it's like I'm kind of like not into wearing my knits. I don't know. It'll come back. So I'm wearing the beautiful Saint Laurent pattern. Actually, I put this on. I'm like, oh, I think I'm gonna want to bring this home with me. So this is the Saint Laurent pattern from Espace Tricot, and Jocelyn over here. You want to wave, Jocelyn? Jocelyn designed the pattern and knit it up for us.
No, actually, Mona knitted that
Oh
one.
yeah, I'm sorry, Mona. I should
Mona
give you credit
knitted that
because it was
one.
yes,
That's
Mona.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Mona did that one.
Jocelyn,
It was a little hard going.
you knit the original one in the
Yeah,
line.
in
That's
Petit
it.
Lay.
So it's a team effort over here. Design, knits it, and I just wear it. And it's done in the Mayak lace weight yarn.
Yes,
And
so beautiful.
But I am wearing something I knit.
You did.
I knit myself a cuff.
Yay!
Because
since she fractured.
yeah, since I fractured, because I'm having a little issue with my little metal plates here that seem to not want to integrate into my body. So I said I need to give it some love. So I knit a little cuff out of a Woolfolk Far. And I just cast on 36 stitches, but on a 9mm needle. I mean, it means not 9-inch needle. So I had to work really small knits and purls and ribbing. So it was really good.
Good therapy.
Yeah. So actually, I was wearing something that I knit.
There you go. Oh, yeah.
I think it took me not even an hour to do it. So
How many grams?
minute knitting. Okay.
So I'm Amma. I'm wearing right now What the Fade and a flax light that I faded as well.
So good.
Yeah, and it works. So explain. So
stand
you,
up, too.
stand up. So you did a flax light, but you didn't do the detail on the
No,
arm.
I didn't do the ridge on the arm. I made it
Because it's garter on the.
it's garter on the
So
arm.
it's a flax hack.
And I knitted a size smaller so that the neck wouldn't be a boat neck.
Okay, and you did like a more fitted. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
By
really
knitting it a
nice.
size smaller.
And then you just did 3. Is it 3 different colors that you used? And you
5.
5 different colors.
Yeah, one,
Oh
two,
yeah, here.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
perfect.
here and here are different colors.
Yeah.
That's great. And our staff is really great at doing hacks. I kind of like that word, Melissa.
Yeah.
Really good at just like modifying things and simple. It doesn't look like it was too complicated to.
No.
No.
It took me a month and a half to knit it.
Okay, amongst other things.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I'm Annie. I'm going to be the moderator for tonight. So it's me that you're speaking with on the YouTube channel. So if you have questions, please send them in and I will try to get to them. I'm wearing a store sample. It's the Veronica cardigan, which is by Shannon Cook, if I'm not mistaken. And it's in Brooklyn tweed. I'm not sure the colorway, but
It's Thistle.
It was knit by Stephanie.
Yeah.
So if you want to wait.
Yeah. Hi.
Stephanie knit.
So yeah, the colorway is Thistle, I think.
This
that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I'll
And it
be
was the
taking
first size, right?
It's the second size.
Is it?
Yeah.
Are there 2 or 3 sizes?
There's
now?
I think there's 5.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so second size.
That's
Don't
it.
quote me on that.
Okay. I'm sure someone's on Ravelry right now checking it out.
Hi, I'm Mona. I'm wearing a Yokul. That's from Keiko Kikuno. I think
Well
it was
done.
Yeah, wow.
Oh yeah.
And I used the Woolfolk tinned with Freya refined to get a nice.
Oh yeah, you should show off the.
And that's
it's
interesting because they're very
really-
different fibers.
Did you
Yeah,
just knit
that's
this,
it,
Mona?
Nope, I knit that almost 2 years ago.
Oh, really? I've never seen it.
And those are like
You
okay,
haven't been
Mona.
around that much.
Mona. She's in New Jersey.
I haven't been in
New Jersey. Could you just show the colors on that? Because
The
this,
fade of the Freya.
What yarn is it? I know you just said, but I...
The Freya refined.
Freya.
And the color is, I think it's South Beach, but I'm not.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
is,
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make a point that these are quintessential Mona colors, which were colors
Yes.
Melissa and I never ordered for the store.
I made
If
them.
you see those colors in our store, it's
It's because of
works
Mona.
here.
It's only because of Mona we have those colors.
However, you've gotten to the point where you order themselves now. I
Yes,
don't
no,
have to.
true. Yeah, it's embedded in our mind now.
Yes.
Okay, I'm Stephanie, and I'm wearing a Michelle Wang pattern called Cordova, which was from her Brooklyn Tweed capsule collection. But it predates my my tenure here. So the yarn actually has a good story. I bought it at this like tiny general store in the middle of Grossmore National Park, and it was I think it's Briggs and Little, and it was like $2 in a giant bin. I mean, it was like nothing.
Wow.
So yeah, and then beautiful.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Took about 2 years to finish it. I put it away for like a year, had an entire baby, came back to it.
An entire baby. Not a partial baby.
An entire baby.
Yeah. She knows what you're talking about.
Okay, I am Diana, and I'm the newest member of the team here. I'm here on weekends now at Espace Tricot, and I don't know how much you can see what I'm wearing, because I'm at the edge of the frame, but it's a Chuck sweater by Andy Satterland, and mine's knit in the Quince & Co. Lark. So,
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes, and Diana, we kind of, how could you say, we plucked her from our
reflector from our customer
yes,
base.
we're like, oh my god, let's hope. But we always have a joke here that if anybody ever wants to leave, they have to find somebody to replace them. So she's here until if she wants to go, gotta find someone.
It's Hotel California.
Exactly. Sasha knows about that.
Oh yes, I do. Sam was on her way out. Sam plucked me.
Yeah,
I was on my way out. I got Naomi.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh, Naomi, we let her off the hook though. But I think
I know
you guys scouted. You guys scouted.
Well, she didn't just leave Montreal. She went to Scotland.
Well,
so,
that's
yeah.
she had a valid excuse.
It was so funny because when you guys were recommending Amma, you said she's the new Naomi.
Yes,
That's
that's
right.
exactly what I said. Naomi, we need her.
So I have a first question actually. It's from Lisa's son, and if I don't ask it, he's gonna get mad. He wants to know. He doesn't understand what you're doing with those 2 sticks.
Such a
Joker.
I think he's being a little jokester. Is he a troll? So what? Well, actually, Mona has 4 sticks, not 2, or 5. You have 5 sticks.
I have 4.
You have 4, exactly. Everyone else. So my dear Gianluca, we're knitting, and he actually has a blanket that he started last year. And he promised me he would finish it because I said, if I give you all this beautiful Lana Grande yarn, you have to finish the blanket. He said, oh yes, Mommy, I'll finish it. He was 10 at the time, or maybe 9 at the time. So a year later, he's gone through 2 balls. I think he thinks it's 2.5, but I think it's 2.
It's like a ball a year.
Yeah, exactly. And he has 8 more. And his class, actually, we started knitting in his class, and they're all making little Christmas ornaments, but he has to do his blanket. He's not allowed to have any more yarn till he finishes his blanket. So now, honey, everybody knows. Now go to bed. It's late.
He can come and show his blanket.
Oh, there you go. He can come and show it
all finished.
when it's all done. It might be another 2 years.
Is he doing it with needles or figure knitting? That
Oh, he's doing it with needles. But, you know, he started knitting it, and, well, he was knitting it last week, and then he's like, oh, he got bored, so then he took yarn and he started finger knitting.
So I remember him doing one with finger knitting. I think he did like a carpet or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. He really likes finger knitting because it's mindless, but it's time to graduate, 11 years old.
Time for the sticks.
Tough love.
Yeah, time for the sticks.
Time for the sticks.
I think people want to know is are Melissa and Lisa, anybody else maybe going to Vogue Knitting Live this year?
Anybody here going?
Oh.
So we have been going for the last few years, and we do really want to go. The only problem is that I have recently withdrawn my green card application since moving back to Canada, and it takes a while for that to be processed. So until it's processed, I actually can't cross the border. So if it is processed and we get confirmation that the withdrawal has been confirmed, then we will be going, right?
Yep.
Right.
It's in our calendar.
It's in our calendar.
Yeah, Melissa and I always have tons of big plans and
so it'll just be we will be paying a ridiculous rate for a hotel because we'll be booking it late.
Which is what we did last year.
Yeah.
Why don't you book? You can cancel 24 hours prior arrival.
Not everywhere.
No,
well,
if you check beforehand before reserving,
we could
do
that. Yeah. And then we could, we'll have to figure out how we're going to go, if we're going to train or fly.
Or drive.
Or drive.
Yeah. So there. Sorry for that long-winded answer.
Yeah.
But
Anyway,
we're hoping that we're going to be there.
When is it? What weekend is it this year?
It's always on my birthday, the weekend of the 13th.
Yeah, I think it's around. Yeah, it should be that weekend.
Oh, maybe I'll go.
Swing it. I thought you were working on weekends, Diane.
No, I know. It's true.
Christmas knitting, since we're right around that time. Is anybody doing any Christmas knitting?
Yeah, I am.
Nope, for
Working
myself.
on something. We have quite a few people. Let's start. Melissa, do you want to start us off?
Sure. After we did that whole thing about not knitting for people, I'm actually knitting for 2 people. So this one I'm just casting on now. They are knit-worthy. In fact, So this is Kobuk. I don't know. Can you see?
That's nice.
Yeah.
It's small.
It's small. Okay.
nice.
It's a new. I don't actually know if it's a new one, but it's by Caitlin Hunter, Boylan Knitworks. And she's a woman after my own heart because it's actually stranded with silk and mohair. It's a DK.
You mean the pattern is originally that?
It's originally that. I'm not actually adding my silk and mohair. So and it's a beautiful pattern. It's got bobbles. It's got what is that rib called where it's knit through the back loop?
Oh, twisted
rib. Yeah. And anyway, I won't mention who it's for because she may or may not be watching. But I'm knitting that, and then I'm knitting one of those entwined scarves in the Magnum.
And that's a pretty quick, easy knit for people
That's a quick,
who want
easy knit. Exactly.
one.
There's still time to knit that before Christmas for sure. You want to get the finished one, Lise? If you're up, I think it's just on the end of the
finished what?
Entwine?
Oh, okay. I'm like, I thought you had it in your hand.
Sorry, this has been a great store sample, and I've Instagrammed it a few times, but it's Entwine by Jane Richmond, right? It's not by Shannon Cook. It's by Jane Richmond, and this is the Birch Heather colorway in Magnum, and it's nice and quick. So, yeah. So someone I know saw that and said they wanted it for Christmas. So she knows who she is.
So I actually I'm not knitting, but my husband is like, oh, a great topic for like your podcast. You should talk about ghost knitting. Like, ghost writing where people write for you and they pretend that you wrote it. So it's like, you should talk about ghost knitting because obviously now I got to do some ghost knitting because I'm not capable. So I'm not knitting. I'm not having this ghost do ghost knitting for tons of people. But I just asked Amalia. There's a mother during my very injured time. She made me so many meals. Oh. It was almost embarrassing at the end. And last week I was at a meeting and her husband was like, he just walks into the meeting with like a black bean homemade soup. So she's just done so much, and she's one of those women who just gives without any expectation of return.
It was me. It wasn't me.
So I know she wants nothing in return, but I really feel like she was just so generous and like really like incredible meals, like to the point if she went out and got the baguette for me to go with.
So Lisa's gonna have somebody else.
So I'm gonna have somebody else knit or something. So Emily is gonna do the Romney kerchief, but we're gonna do it a little bit bigger. We haven't chosen the yarn yet, so that's my holiday.
What yarn are you going to use?
We haven't decided yet. Okay. I need to figure that out.
Did you just say that?
I think I
did. Okay. Who else is holiday knitting, did we say? Anyone else? Mona?
I am. I'm making a hat for a friend who deserves it. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, knit-worthy?
See?
Absolutely, yes.
Is it an improv or is it a pattern?
No, it's because I made one for myself and I really love it. It's called Really Warm Hat. It's by Melissa Lynn.
Descriptive.
It's a free pattern on Ravelry.
Is it
it's Malabrigo Rasta.
Rasta?
Yeah.
Oh.
I started this afternoon, so this is like a last minute quick knit.
Yeah.
Highly recommended.
Yeah, chunky hats, chunky scarves.
Yeah, we've left it to the last minute, Mona?
No,
not
from last minute is
well, I mean, we're
24th
now.
The 24th.
Seriously. Have you done
this
that?
is a sweater for Hannah that needs to be done.
Oh. Anybody else Christmas?
That's a nice color.
Well, I brought what I was working on last knit night because it's mostly finished now. So this is for my daughter.
Oh,
it's also a faded flax, but it's the flax light fingering for kids. But I think what I'm going to have to do in order for her to wear it, because all she'll wear right now is these, princessy sort of thing. It's like a sweater with a tulle skirt attached to it.
How old is she?
3.
Yeah, that's
it's like my princess.
Yes.
So I think I'm gonna, if I can find the time, run and get some tulle and do like a little tulle
cute.
skirt attached
then
in
she'll wear
aqua,
the sweater.
and then she'll wear it. She'll be like, "Oh, my princess," and she'll wear it.
That's
So
a winter. It's
super
called the
cute.
Winter Princess.
Yeah.
I love that. I love.
So yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's great. It's a great. The flax pattern is
But you did it
awesome.
in garter, isn't
Yeah,
it?
so
In
they're not-
It is. It's supposed to be in stocking with the garter thing, but I really liked when I did the comfort fade cardi. I really liked the way it looked on the wrong side when you changed your fade color on a pearl. And the way it actually it's sort of more confusing to the eye. It's not as stripy, so I wanted to play with that. And
So what have you done on the sleeve where the flax has?
I just
you
gartered
did
all the way around.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just basically use the numbers, right? And that's what I
Yeah.
love about that pattern is like you get gauge and you can go, and it's pretty flexible.
I actually am knitting something too, if I can.
Oh,
just.
Yeah, of course.
Since I'll just share this quickly. This is from my mom. It's the Meandering Shawl by Stephen West.
Oh, nice.
And I decided to use the blue brick yarn, which is an Ontario yarn company that does ombre, like self-fading yarn kind of thing. So on one side it's the blue brick, and on the other side I did my own yarn. And she chose the colors, so she better like it. And this I started maybe about a week and a half ago.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm almost done.
So for those of you who don't know, we mentioned Annie or introduced Annie at the beginning, but Annie is knitting it up. So Annie has a yarn line. She's an independent hand dyer with beautiful colorways. So that's great. That you're using
Gorgeous
it.
colorway.
I just had a baby too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just had a
a lot going on.
yeah.
And we want to know, Lisa, how your arm is.
Oh, it's actually, I got a ring on my finger,
Oh.
but it's a very big ring that I can normally not wear, and it's just but I got it on, so I'm trying to make myself look a little prettier here. I'm doing much better. Things have improved incredibly. Everyone's happy with me, but my mobility is still passive mobility is still quite reduced.
But that's amazing.
It's amazing
really
compared
good,
to where I've come from.
Even just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my physio worked a lot on my thumb, opening up the thumb, which was something that was big. So I'm using it all the time. I even drove myself here with my standard car today. So
Nice.
thanks for asking.
So you have
It's
your
going well.
freedom back, your independence.
Yes, I can do everything all by myself. So that's great.
So I have a question from someone. Any shawl blocking tips? Do you guys have any tips for when you're blocking your finished garments or shawls in particular?
Bring lots of patience.
And blocking wires.
Yeah.
Blocking wires.
So Emily, you want to explain why?
It just keeps the edges really nice and straight and smooth. So you just run, I'll wash the shawl, and while it's still a little damp, I'll run the wires through the edge, over, whatever is easier, usually over every stitch or every row or every 2 rows. And that way, and then you just pull and pin it down, and that way when you take everything out, the edges are nice and smooth, they're clean, they're crisp. You don't get those little peaks from when you're trying to block them with just those little pins. So blocking wires, especially the flexible ones.
You know what's really interesting, and that's especially important when you're blocking a shawl with a lot of lace work in it. If it doesn't have a lot of lace work, I actually tend to just steam block. So for example, the birds of a feather that I just Instagrammed and posted to Ravelry, or Stephanie posted that to Ravelry, but that we just posted to Ravelry. If you look at it, it looks beautifully blocked, but it's just steam blocked. So what I do is I take my like a tea towel, I wet it, I wring out the excess water, and I just work the shawl in sections on my ironing board. So I just lay it down, I put the tea towel down, and then I'll just push steam through my iron. Not an actual steamer. I don't have anything fancy. I just have an iron with a steam setting, and so I don't press it hard because you don't want to flatten your fibers, but I will just push the steam through, take the tea towel off and shape it a little bit, and then just move it to the next section. And as you're doing that, you're kind of straightening your edges, you're spreading, because that one has a bit of lace in it. But it works great for all the Stephen West shawls because they tend to be mostly garter.
Yeah, that's true. You have to.
That's what I
like,
did with
different-
this one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And different patterns require different kinds of blocking.
Yeah.
So there's the wire, there's the steam blocking. Sometimes when you make a sweater, you just need to like lay it flat and kind of spread it
And
out.
maybe just use those knit blocker pins, you know.
If you need to shape it.
yeah.
But sometimes you don't even need anything. You
Well,
can
that's
just
what I
leave it
did
there.
with this dress. When I blocked it, I just used my knit blockers just to make the armhole straight, like just to make sure that as it was drying, it was just gonna dry straight, not a little bit wonky. And
what a knit blocker is, it's a series of pins that are from Knitter's Pride, and instead of doing individual pins, it's like a comb, and there are a few pins. So there's like 5 or 6, and then there's the bigger ones. So sometimes that's helpful too to get a straighter edge for an area that's shorter. There's also there's something. Also, we block when we do the blocking wires with pins. What most of us have are just the play mats that you buy at Canadian Tire or Walmart. They're the big puzzle pieces, and you just interlock those and put them down. And so some people use their yoga mat, some people use their beds.
You steal them from your children?
But I find the play mats are the best because you don't mind poking holes, and you can put the pieces together to make it whatever size
shape and size you need.
That one on the 4 were enough. Because I
Four were
had
enough.
one piece and then the 2 in the middle and then the other one. And part of it was, of course, in the air, so to speak, but it was enough to block this huge...
For them,
this one you
that's what
definitely needed
a lot of people don't think about
Yes,
too.
that
When
you
you're
need
blocking
wires.
your thing, not everything has to rest on your mat.
That's
Right.
true.
You could just like put the wing corners and
especially if you use wires.
Yeah, and so you can adjust how many pieces you have depending on the space.
Yeah.
Another thing too is, I don't know why, but sometimes when I knit shawls, one side is tighter than the other, and so when I block it, what I do is I always measure. So the blocking kits we sell come with a measuring,
Like
with
on
a
either side of the
yardstick.
spine,
Yeah.
you mean?
So what I do is say if there's a spine and it needs to be symmetrical, I'll measure, and it's shocking sometimes. It's like 2 inches looser on one side than the other. So I'm like pulling the wire, and so that I can even out and make it straighter. Even baby blankets, usually they don't require stretch blocking, but I did the one, the pattern's a church mouse yarn pattern. It goes like this and then it goes like that. So basically it's like a common dishcloth pattern. So you start with 4 stitches, you knit here, and then you increase and then you decrease.
Oh, yeah.
So every time I knit that one, it's some kind of shape that's not a square. So I have to put blocking wires in and make it a square. So that's a good tip for. Does anybody else have tips for blocking?
Well, just what you were. Sorry, Jocelyn.
The Knitter's Pride blocking things, one thing that maybe people don't notice is that those combs have little holes at each end. And you can put like a dental floss, tie it, and thread it through to put tension to the next one.
That's creative.
Yeah. And that makes like a really good last minute present for any knitter, because I know I don't even have them yet. And it's always something that I don't want to buy for myself.
No, they're great.
But
They are great.
Yeah. So knitter's wish list. And I think your tip on ironing is smart for people in condos or small spaces like me. And somebody asked actually, and I'm going to ask you guys if you know the answer. Anything made from 100% wool, can it be blocked or will it felt?
Nope. This is
Can be blocked,
Oh, yeah.
It can be blocked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it totally has to be blocked.
I think wool is the most important thing to block.
Yes.
Because you relax the fibers and the thing is what felts things is when there's heat and friction.
Yeah.
So that's what you want to avoid. So even what I do is when I hand wash, if there's a lot of water that's hard to get out that I can't squeeze out in a towel like a blanket, I put it in my washing machine and I put it on a spin cycle because there's no friction and it spins and it takes out all the excess water for it to dry quickly.
And it has to be a spin cycle, not rinse and spin.
No,
I
just
had
spin.
spin and spin.
Yeah.
And one time I almost ended
Lost
up
it.
rinsing and spinning. That would
But yeah, you just want it to spin.
Yeah.
A salad spinner can work really well too for smaller
Yeah,
things.
Also,
Smaller
there are other
parts.
things
I
very
do
good.
that with
I
baby sweaters and socks.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
2-towel
yeah,
trick
yeah.
and standing on them too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You do it once, do a second time, and stand on it.
I just want to add something to the whole steam blocking thing. There are a few fibers that I tend not to steam block, so I don't. If a yarn has a lot of silk in it, I won't. I find that silk just sort of loses its body if you apply a lot of heat to it, and things like bamboo.
Yeah.
I iron the hell out of hemp and linen and all that kind of stuff, but bamboo I find just
Well, and anything with acrylic too.
and acrylic, yes.
Yeah, anything
Yeah.
with
Yeah, and you iron as you go sometimes as well.
Iron as I
right?
go, especially if I'm doing top-down sweaters and stuff, so I can really try on and see, that I'm measuring accurately in terms of length.
And we should also add for gauge, right? Because a lot of times people do their gauge swatch and they don't block it. And you know, you don't have to get fancy blocking. Depends how well. Jocelyn will get very fancy blocking. But you know, especially if you're knitting with like linen or cottons or silk, things that will stretch out. So it's really important if you do something that really needs to fit that you block your swatch so that you really have an accurate.
And if you really just want to be, you want to block it, but you don't want to do that whole thing where you soak it and wait.
You steam it.
Then just steam it.
Or especially like if you're doing sleeves on a sweater and it tells you knit for 12 inches. Well, sometimes when you block, you can gain an extra inch or two.
Absolutely. That's
so
why
by
I block and steam
so
as I go.
steam blocking as you go a sweater is really smart because then you can adjust the sleeve length.
So a beginner sock pattern. We have somebody here asking if we have any good recommendations for that, and I know there are a couple. So
I do actually. I'll put this one down.
I'm knitting the Smooth Operator sock by Susan B. Anderson.
Okay.
And it's all straight, no increase, no gusset, no heel flap. It's just an afterthought heel.
Okay. And it's cuffed down.
It's cuffed down. I did one.
What's
already.
it called again, Catherine?
Smooth Operator sock.
Smooth Operator.
So I did the first one. So it's really, and you knit straight down. You put a waist yarn for the heel, like I did already here,
and
you come back to
really
it
good.
after. And it's a photo tutorial.
Yeah.
It's a 20-page pattern. So
with
a lot of explanations. So it's
and
really
Sasha, what were you?
Well, it's actually a class I'm teaching. It's toe up, and it's called the Time Traveler sock. And what's like really good about this one that I recommend it for beginners, it's that you're not picking up.
The heel is easy.
The heel is so easy. Yeah. You're not picking up any stitches in the gusset. It's fantastic. And the designer is Liz Sedmak. It's a free pattern available on Ravelry. It's called the Time Traveler sock. It has a little simple ribbing to it. It's not like knit one, purl two kind of thing. It's kind of random, which is fun.
Are we talking about the first pair of sock or like a beginner who has knit a pair and wants to move on?
I think they are open to both, but I think this was like a first pair of sock. And I know my first pair of sock was a Mona pattern.
Mine
too.
And I only use that one.
That's what
I'm
I
so
used to.
old school. I would never start anyone again with a toe-up pattern as a first sock. Because when I taught classes, I had tears in the class
For toe-up?
For toe-up.
Really? Was it the cast on?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the increases because it's I can do it. It's fiddly, but it's not hard to do. It's just very fiddly, and if you can't see it well, I had tears in my class, and I just think cuff down, learn how it's done, and then go from there and decide what's better for you.
And that's it's called Scrumptious Stripes. So it's
a
Mona's
plain
pattern.
vanilla sock.
Plain vanilla sock, and you just do it in a fun yarn, and it looks very impressive. And actually, there's a girl in Gianluca's class in grade 5, Alice, who's knitting that pattern right now.
Cool.
Yeah,
Actually, I brought
she
mine.
just started the heel flap, and she finished the heel flap, and now our next step is the gusset.
Not the
So-
one
Kids
with the
are
I'm
feeling
doing
it
it right
never
now
know.
here.
Yeah.
Also. I haven't finished
Carla's
it.
doing it.
Carla's doing it.
Carla's doing it.
Oh, you're
Also,
doing the.
I brought it in case I finish this.
Yeah, right.
So you're doing the scrumptious stripe sock, but not in scrumptious stripes.
No, this is Artfeel Bell, actually.
I like that. What's that colorway?
Neapolitan.
Yeah,
Neapolitan.
Oh.
Actually, yes.
It's nice seeing
Sorry.
Yeah, it's nice seeing it up. Glad our staff knows their colorways.
Who studied before coming? I have a question here, which is really interesting. Is there any designer or maybe a book or anything that you recommend for people who are trying to figure out a good fit for their sweaters? Maybe for people who haven't mastered that yet.
The coconuts.
Yeah,
Coconut
sweater workshop.
Yeah.
Chloe, you want to talk about that?
Or maybe
I haven't done one from it, but I mean, I could
taught the
You're the
class,
one
right?
teaching.
So
Yeah.
Oh, Jocelyn's doing the class.
The Lizzy Sweater's from
So
that
is this a
book.
class here at Espace? Is that
Yeah,
it?
yeah. We just finished our last class today. I like the coconut method because you start from the top down. There's very little seaming to be done, and you can do adjustment as you do your yoke. You can do adjustments for your body type. And in the book also, she has suggestions as far as body type, what's flattering and what to avoid.
Yeah.
And she's got quite a few patterns in there that you can also modify. Like in my case, this one was cropped, and I don't wear cropped sweaters, so I made mine longer. So the adjustments are not that hard, and she guides you through them.
Yeah, you know, and if you need a particular size, but then you know you need a little bit more in your arms or something, she tells you where to go ahead and put those extra stitches in, and that's a good one.
Now, not in that same vein, but I think Stephanie, are you doing the Strange Brew class? Oh,
no.
It's you're doing it. Okay, I'm sorry. Brew, so even though it's like one sweater, it's a way to adjust color work, is it not?
Exactly. So you get to choose. Like it explains.
Is that from Tin Can Knits?
Yeah, it's Tin Can Knits, and it explains on how to choose colors, how to incorporate different designs, where to do the decreases, and obviously it's Tin Can Knits, so it goes from 0 to 3 months to like men's 4XL, which is great. Yeah, but it's more about incorporating color work and how to do the decreasing and adjusting, and
it's a recipe, right?
Exactly.
It's a recipe,
that's good.
It's gonna be really great because. It's also an exercise in gauge too, because the color work is only on the top, and we all know that most people, if they're just doing plain stockinette, they get, let's say, a certain gauge with a certain needle, but if to get the same gauge in color work, not everyone uses the same needle, so there's that too.
Oh, that's interesting.
I've noticed that with the cowl that I'm hosting this fall, the Sunset Highway. Yeah, like I told everybody, please do a swatch because your color work is not the same gauge as your stockinette.
Swatch both, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Stockinette and color work.
Exactly.
Yeah, otherwise one of the two will just either puff up or loosen.
Exactly.
Yeah. And is that almost, you're doing a knit along for that as well as the store?
Yeah, the last knit along was last Thursday.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to, when we've given people till the 20.
I think. Just before Christmas.
Just before Christmas, we'll be drawing. So don't forget to put your finished object photos. Did I create the thread yet, Sasha?
For the finished object, no.
Okay, so I better do that so people can be entered into the draw.
I find a lot more people on Ravelry are either done or almost done.
Okay.
Versus those that actually
the one in the class. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. It's okay.
A lot of chatting going on in the store.
It was the same last year.
Yeah. That's true. Catherine used to run our knit-alongs, and then she went off and had a baby, and then Sasha took over, so she's doing it.
Well, I better cast on then. So I had a question here do you have anything on your wish list, guys, since Christmas is coming up? Is there anything like that accessory-wise maybe, or yarn that that maybe others can add to their wish list?
I do actually. We were talking about this like maybe 2 weeks ago. There's just some stuff in the store that like I see all the time. I'm like, and then when it just comes out, I'm like, I want it. But then time passes and I don't get it. And I find if too much time passes by, I never go back and get it. But that doesn't mean I still don't want it. But it's still there on my wish list. Like the wrist ruler from Coco Knits, that's on my wish list.
Oh no, I was like the wrist ruler.
The wrist ruler bracelet. Yeah.
The magnetic one you mean?
No, that one, the ruler. I have the magnetic one.
Okay, that's why I love handles.
No, sorry.
I love handles.
Yeah,
I love handles. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, just Coco Knits makes a bracelet.
I have the bracelet. I already have that one.
Yeah.
That one I got right away. She loves it so much.
But it's super useful. Like, I just handed it to Chloe because she had to measure something.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So anyways, that was on my, it's on my wish list. It's one of those things that like you want to get, but then, I don't know.
But when you get it though, it takes you a while to remember to have it.
But
like
then,
oftentimes I'll be walking around the store and be like, does anyone have a measuring tape?
And it's like, where are my glasses? I'm wearing them.
And the funny thing is that I will have everyone in the store looking for my glasses. That I'll ask them directly to help me look for my glasses, and they will all look, and they will be on my head. So they don't notice either.
Do you ever have people come in the store maybe that are shopping for a knitter? Is there anything that you recommend?
Oh, so many things.
Anybody? I know Chloe has done that multiple times. I've witnessed it.
Yeah, that's very common for everybody. Husbands and friends and girlfriends and sisters, and everybody wants to gift their knitters something knitty. I find project bags a really great thing for that, because it's not always, you want to spend money on yarn when you're a knitter, so that's a really great thing to gift someone.
And yarn is personal too.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yarn is always tough, but or there's so many like little pins and stuff that you don't want to buy yourself, or another one is the what's the wooden box?
The needle look.
Yeah, those are another cute thing that are just a great thing to have. Are you know, like needle stoppers and all these useful things that sometimes you never think of. It's great to get them as gifts, and it's just this extra little treat. So there's the needle nook and the needle keeper that you put your circular
the little
needles
plastic
in.
one to the exchanging fire one.
Oh,
that
yeah,
puts
the
the snap and go. Like that's the one I eye up all the time. Yeah.
I think the nicest thing. Well, no, not the nicest, but one of the nice things we got in just in the last week are the My Knitting Notes journals.
Yeah. We were just talking about that on our way over here. I was telling Jocelyn, like, I'm happy that she's here at the store, but at the same time, I'm sad because that's the gift that I would have gotten her for Christmas, but now she has access to everything. So it kind of takes away the fun.
That's true because Sasha recruited Jocelyn to come and teach at our store.
Well, the funny thing is,
it is my fault, right?
Well, the funniest thing was she was doing a job interview at my workplace, and she told them that she was a knitter, and they said, "Oh, wait. You're going to be sitting next to Jocelyn. She's a knitter too."
Exactly.
And then the big thing was every Monday was show and tell at work. It's like, well, what did you do this weekend?
I actually have on my wish list an extra set of are they called the knit blockers, those pins?
Yeah.
Because I accidentally put a wool sweater in the washing machine, and I had to get my knit blockers out and my wires to stretch it. And I didn't have enough with one box, so that's on my list, which I guess is easy to get because I could just take a box. For some reason, it's like that thing is one thing you think you should get, and then it'll be all sold out.
Anybody remember 44?
44.
Okay,
I think a Swift or
y'all.
Oh yeah, Swift or
a
y'all.
Swift,
yes.
A gleaner.
The ball winder.
Yeah, gleaner.
You know, that's one of those things. The Swift and ball winder. It's an expensive thing to buy, and I have to say, you know, we've tried many ball winders, and the little plastic one is still the most effective.
The
Royal, which they don't make anymore.
I know.
And, really? I have like a collector's item?
Yeah, you do.
Yes, you do.
You can sell them on eBay.
That's what when I hear a little click and I hear because that's what happens when the gears start going.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, just a couple more years.
Hang on. So it's a pricey gift. It's something that most knitters like want but never plunge.
Right, because when you come to the store and you have a choice between buying yourself a Swift or more yarn, it becomes, well, I can buy my yarn. Yeah. But it's so nice to have one of those.
It's nice to have it.
It is. And I don't, we've tried a lot of expensive ones. We've tried all different price points. Yeah. And I don't think the more expensive ones are any better than the, like, you know, we've tried $200-$300 ones versus the $100 or $70
I would say there's not much difference.
And then on top of that, what you need in the store, where it's getting used all the time by so many people, is really different than what somebody needs at home for you know, their personal hobby. Like I have a little plastic one that I bought years ago that has, you know, it's fine, it works great, and I would say like, yeah, it is like the best investment I ever, any of my tools, to just be able to wind my yarn when I want to use it.
Have
Just at that moment.
Have you found that leads to cast-on-itis, though, having a ball winder?
I wind something on, not having a ball winder isn't going to stop.
I wind my yarn by hand now because it slows me down.
Is that
smart?
Mind you, I do like the nose spine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really like it because it makes nice, compact little balls that
pull from the center.
And I have a ball winder.
It's called nostepinne.
Oh, nostepinne?
Yeah.
What did you call it?
It's a Scandinavian word again.
Wait, can I just say
it's like
something?
licking needles?
No, wait, can we get Diana to properly say nostepinne and lykke?
Nostepinne.
Nostepinne?
Og lykke.
And there you have it.
No, but I speak it.
Authoritative. That's how you say.
Is that why she got hired in the
So she's the only one who can pronounce it properly. And so this is what it looks like.
Yeah, and it's not that expensive.
And why do you like this? What's the advantage of this
well,
versus
I used
the fingers?
to pull. Before I had a ball winder, I used to do it by hand. And what happens is, if you want to do a nice ball by hand, you keep rotating it with your fingers. After a while, your hand cramps up. With this, you just every so often you twist it as you do that, so it's more ergonomic.
Okay, and you wrap it around.
And it gives you a center pull ball.
Yeah, it gives you a really nice center pull ball.
Right. Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
And it's funny what you're saying about castitis. What I do is my ball winder is like up in storage, so it's like such a pain to have to go up and get it. So I really have to want to wind
stuff here.
So sometimes I wind it by hand because I just couldn't be bothered to get on the step stool to go pick it up. Carla, you mentioned the gleaner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would love it for all my garments, and it's great for knitting garments actually. I think anybody of us here could do like.
And my shawl could do it.
Make sure.
I do.
I'm
behind. Anybody want to clean?
This is one. We've had this since Gleaner existed. We were like the first, and it's an incredible product. Not so sexy. But
it is.
It is sexy. Come on.
Come on. As far as
I don't know. There's something about like bringing home to your beautiful wife, like, look here, you can take your pills off your sweater. Right?
Oh, that really gets me going.
Oh boy! I mean, as far as a depiller goes,
it's true. It is the sexiest depiller out there. But it is bar none the best, most important tool in your knitting
toolbox.
Yeah. And I have it at my door. You have it too at your door. I give myself a little shave.
One upstairs, one downstairs.
And I also keep my travel one in my bag.
The travel one's really nice.
You need everyone needs a gleaner. Everyone, even a non-knitter needs a gleaner.
Yes. Even my 15-month-old daughter, when she sees it, she picks it up and she starts to
started. And I've done everything with that. I depilled the rug.
Yes.
A wool rug with a big.
But they have the one that's also good for pets too, no?
Well, it's an attachment you put on here.
Yeah.
And it's to take off pet hair from your furniture, but people also use it to brush their dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
I bought one for my best friend who has 2 cats, and when I go to her place, they get on my knit, so that started to bother me. So I bought her one.
Oh, I love those kinds of gifts.
Yeah.
I just wanted before Anya, I know you have something there.
It.
So I just want, because some people said project bags. So a lot of us here have the Jezebel project. Oh my God, it's hilarious.
The same color.
Our sweet, sweet Jezebel brought us this amazing basket of chocolates and popcorn, from a little shop near where she lives in Audubon Park. I should say the name. It's La Cabosse d'Or. And it's all chocolates that are homemade there at their location in Audubon Park in Quebec. So she put it in a project bag. When Amma opened it, she's like, "Oh my God, there's a project bag!" So
oh my gosh, she actually
it's a snack bag. It's a snack bag.
Nice.
So with the project bag, it's not just for knitting. You can use it for so many things.
Yeah, but I think what's great about the way it's displayed here is it shows you that you can use your project bag as a bucket.
Bucket.
I've been doing it ever since she posted it on Instagram. I've been doing this.
Well, it's funny. I walked in here and the 3 of you had this.
Yeah. I know, but I've been flipping mine over ever since Emily showed me how Mona did it.
Yeah, when I saw it like that, I'm going, duh.
Well, because
it's so convenient.
Exactly. Because Jezebel asked us, she says, "Oh, do you think," like she was thinking of doing buckets, but then she realized
that
you just have to flip it out.
Yeah. And imagine it's under your tree with some chocolate and some yarn and a glitter. Like it would be like the knitter paradise gift, right?
Yeah. And even if you're not, if for a non-knitter, you can stuff it with other stuff, and it's a little.
And then you keep the bag.
I like it as a snacking bag. I like the idea of like hang it on your arm at the movies and it's got all your stuff in it.
On to the next, because we've got more than one.
I just wanted to say I snuck in a little early before the live knit night, and I bought this from my mother-in-law. It's the Slow Knitting book, and somebody was asking about it. And this is by Hannah Thiessen. Yeah. So I know she's probably not watching, so it's safe to show. But yeah, this is a book that I just think it's such a gorgeous photography book.
Yeah.
So it'll make a beautiful coffee table book.
And she's just a nice one to pick up and read.
Yeah. And I might borrow it, so that's a good gift.
And
those are the best gifts,
a book of patterns, right?
It is.
Yes. That one and Outside the Box too is another good one.
Bristol Ivy.
Yeah, we can't keep that one in store.
You're
lucky because we just
you
got
do
slow
still
knitting.
have some of the slow knitting.
It just came in, but we've had Knitting Outside the Box by Bristol Ivy a few times now, and
Three times.
And
it just sold out today. We're setting the last one out today.
So
you heard it here.
So it's always on order.
Every time we think, okay, we're done ordering for a while, so we get an email. This is out of stock.
So I have some people who are planning a visit to Montreal and are planning to come to the store. Is there anything that they should definitely check out in the store that you'd recommend for somebody who's not local and it's their first time here?
Listen, everything in this store is so well curated. They have to check out everything. Yeah. But we do have a lot of local.
Usually when people come specifically and I offer to show them all the local yarns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say local, do you show exclusively Quebec yarns, or do you show?
Well,
Canadian?
I start with the Quebec,
Yeah.
and then I go Canada, because I mean Koigu is Canadian, but it's
Ontario.
yeah,
Sweet Georgia.
and it's
Sweet
well
Georgia.
known,
Sweet Georgia.
and Sweet Georgia is well known.
Depends where they're visiting from.
Yeah.
If they're from somewhere
Yeah.
else in Canada, usually just the Montreal or Quebec
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
And then if
Exactly.
they're from the States or international, we'll show them all the Canadian ones.
And we're pretty well represented because we have Sweet Georgia from the West Coast, and then we have Handmaiden from the East Coast. We have Koigu from Ontario, and then we have quite a few Quebec.
A lot of
Quebec yarns.
Yeah. And also in our accessories and notions, like the Gleaner, it's a Montreal company. It's a woman, Kim.
Jezebel.
Jezebel's from here. Buku is Canadian.
And I also like to point
Zigzag
out.
Stitches is
What
from
about the yarn
Ontario.
bowls too?
Yeah, the new yarn bowls are Montreal.
Yeah.
I think what you need to point out also is like the special way Yana dyes her yarn.
Yeah.
And what Tanis did with her yarn.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like a
So
lot of our
artful.
Canadian design yarn companies have like special ways of like something that marks them, makes them different.
And they're working towards being quite eco-conscious, so definitely the Tanis
Well,
yarn. and
Judy
then
also, because she switched her dyes
Yes,
over.
Judy, exactly. And all the people, the accessories, it's funny because both Buku and Jezebel, they work with their mom. So they make their bags with their mom, and then Catherine from Zigzag Stitches, her husband, had to help her out because our canvas is very thick. When she was making the stocking goes,
So it's hard to turn.
It was hard to turn. So he goes at the end. Her husband said, "Okay, you got to get a new denim," because even he was having trouble. So it's really nice to have these companies where they're working as a family. And also, Emma, you said the pins.
Yeah.
Twill and
Yeah,
Print.
Twill and Print.
Tiffany is here from Montreal. So.
And the Progress Keepers.
Yeah, I have one too. I switched mine out.
Yeah, your needle.
I saw you took one the other
I
day.
know, it was so cute. Let me see. I have
Is
my
the
little
needle
program.
enough
You have
for
the same
somebody
as
a
me?
little sheet.
No,
I have the
knitting.
I have all of them.
I have a sheet.
From Pennsylvania.
You have the sheet.
I have a sheet that I bought on our Etsy shop, and I received just before I saw that
Oh.
you guys had them. But I'm happy I had them. So.
Sometimes you can't wait. Sometimes
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't guess that we would get it here.
No,
so.
exactly.
that's true.
But one thing I
was
can say
in the loop.
for people coming to our shop, a lot of times what they'll do is Moncton is a very nice street where we are, so they'll go to the Griffin for tea or for lunch, and then they'll come here. And we have a really nice artisanal bakery that opened up and
a coffee shop.
and little. So when you come here, give yourself time. I would say, just to.
And
there's
if you
so
wanted
much.
to deposit a spouse somewhere,
Yes.
there's bars, there's
Yes.
coffee houses.
I
like how you deposit a spouse.
There's a ski shop if they're into skiing, there's all kinds of stuff. So give yourself time to go for lunch, hang out, get some bagels. We have St. Viator Bagel here as well.
Yeah.
And also next door, our little boutique next
Oh,
door.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
We have a great little
Really
shop
good.
called 101 Artisans.
Mm-hmm.
And did you want to say something
No,
about
just
them?
go ahead.
They have products from local artisans and also from artisans in Morocco because Amin and his wife own the shop, Natalia, and Amin is from Morocco. So they go back every year and they source things from Morocco and they meet with local artisans. And then they also have a large selection of things from Montreal artisans. So it's a lovely shop. Melissa and I have done a little bit of damage.
You can't go
You have to
in there
pass
and
it
leave
to leave
without
the store.
anything.
No.
Yeah.
Mona.
When I
Yeah.
post
Have a
pictures
clean
of my on Instagram,
Yeah.
often Natalia was like, it would be like, "Oh, I see my pillow
Mom,
in the
can
picture."
I drink anymore? I spilled.
Oh no.
We have a spill.
It's okay. It's prosecco,
So
not
I-
red wine.
And it will wash out.
So someone was asking if anyone's made a mistake since the beginning of the podcast.
Oh,
on
did
the
you
knitting.
I did.
put this down?
I did. I had to. Yeah.
You too?
Yeah, me too.
No,
Yeah.
I finished the
I'm
hat
good.
and I'm knitting on the side.
I
Wait, you finished the
somehow
hat?
have the right number of stitches but ended on the wrong.
Just missing the pom pom.
Oh no.
Mona finished
I
her
forgot
hat.
it. I thought I brought it, but I forgot it at home apparently.
Yep. I'm on to sock number 2.
Oh jeez.
You just finished the first one, or no?
No, I just have the toe left to do on
Oh,
this.
okay.
On this the second foot. So
Okay,
Sock
so
number 2.
what are people working on? Maybe we should.
Yeah, someone wants to know if Amelia has started her sparkly Christmas sweater.
Not yet. Not yet. Probably I'll start that on the 20th.
just cast on Christmas.
She has
Eve.
some
Yeah.
ghost.
Finish it, too.
She has some ghost knitting to do before
I
that.
So what are you
That's
knitting
fine.
right now, Amelia?
I'm knitting another pair of socks for my son.
Mhm.
Because last Knit Night Live I was knitting a pair of socks. And now I'm knitting another pair of socks.
Is that
Those are
Scrumptious
cute.
Pearl?
Yeah,
Those are
Scrumptious Pearl,
Is that
Mischief,
Gryffindor?
Mischief
I was
Managed.
gonna say that
The
looks like Harry Potter.
It is. He doesn't know, but he is going to be a fan when he. Yeah, the advantage is that I have small feet, so I tend to have a lot of leftover for my sock yarn.
Oh, perfect.
And I realized that for his feed, I forgot what it was.
Scissors? Yeah.
It's not 40. If I have 40 grams of sock yarn, it's enough to make a pair of socks.
These
for
are
him.
actually also
Those are
Canadian.
so tiny.
I know.
What are you making, Chloe?
Oh gosh. So
That looks familiar.
Amelia's laughing at me because I was so excited when I started this this sweater, which looks tiny, but it stretches a lot.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
worry.
Well,
You are tiny.
you are tiny, exactly.
I'm tiny, but it is pretty stretchy. And very cropped also. I'm planning to wear it with very high jeans and stuff. But I was very excited when I started this 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, so that's when my mum was visiting. So she doesn't live here, so our way of hanging out is like designing and making patterns together. So she kind of wrote this up when she was here visiting 2 summers ago. So I started it then, did about half as much as I have now, and then as soon as I got to the sleeves, I threw it in the back of the closet. So Melissa, I think, knows where I am, Sleeve Island. So
I spent a lot of time there.
exactly. I thought, what a great opportunity to pull this out and force myself to work on it. So hopefully I'll get to wear it this winter. And this is it's Rowan hemp tweed.
And it's funny what you said that, because we talked about that on a podcast in terms of when you're in a situation, something you don't want to knit it when you're trapped and you have no other option, like you're in a car and you need all the other projects in the
It's the
truck.
only thing that you bring on a trip.
Yeah. I didn't want to bring what I was working on last time, so here we are.
And Jocelyn, what are you knitting? That looks a little different
Oh,
than
well,
socks.
the last couple of years I've been doing a lot of little critters, and they're from the collection of little cotton rabbits.
Yeah, please show some of the ones you have here.
Oh my God.
I am
Adorable.
So
She has her little
I have a production line of sheep going on right now, so I have all the heads and arms. I have a white one. I have a gray one with black face and black ears.
So cute.
I have a brown one with a gray face.
You're gonna have a black sheep too.
Yeah.
A black sheep and a flock.
So these are going to be store samples. So I got the dress done, and now I'm working on the legs.
Closer to the camera.
That is amazing.
We're all fangirling over this.
This is where
I have a basket at home
You like
full of
want
these.
those, but to knit those takes a lot of
I'm going to
patience.
commission you to knit me a set.
Oh my God, a family.
Addison has 2 bunnies at home, and she absolutely loves them.
She loves them.
She loves them. Every time she sees them, she's just like walking around the house.
They're
dragging.
addictive. She has a whole series of different. She's got bears, fox, rabbits, sheep,
Elephant.
She has elephants, monkeys, mice. Pigs.
Wow.
But
Jocelyn,
the nice thing is that you do one, and then all the bodies are the same size. So when you do the clothing, it can go from one to the other.
Good. So the clothing, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you design and knit them all yourselves? All these little sweaters and things you're wearing? Or do the patterns come with clothing?
The pattern that she has one. The critters usually come with a dress.
They're exquisite.
With a dress, or if it's a boy, it's going to be a sweater and a pair of pants.
But they're unisex, right? You just like it's
you can change.
Yeah,
you can
it's
change.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And she also has like a pattern that's a dress specific with different designs, and she has one that's sweater
so
specific.
all these little color work motifs and stuff are in a pattern. Okay.
Yeah.
And is this a class that you teach? Because for me, that would be a little intimidating to do for the first time alone.
It's not so bad.
No.
It's not so bad. The first class, it's usually a three classes, and the first class is concentrated on the head. Losing my voice. On the head.
Okay.
And then after that, the second class is the body parts. Some body parts are easier than others, so we work with the most difficult ones first. And the last class is the clothing. And it's all work flat. I'm cheating here because I'm constructing it round. I've adapted the pattern, but it's all done flat, and then it's a great class to learn finishing techniques because it's not a large project.
Right. So you learn a lot of technique in a small project.
So did you mention? You might have mentioned the designer's name.
Yeah, it's Julie Williams.
Julie Williams. Okay.
Yeah, Little Cotton Rabbits.
Now, Diana, what are you knitting over there?
I have started it's called a nisselue. So this is a Scandinavian Christmas thing. I'm using a pattern by Ellie, who is Skandir Knits. So it's Nisse is a word for like these little elf creatures, and they're associated with Christmas, right? Okay. So they look kind of like what we would think of as garden gnomes. So they've got long pointy hats. They're usually red. So I'm knitting this because I think I want to wear it to a Christmas cookie exchange next weekend, and maybe on Christmas Day with my family. And
so it's a hat.
It's like a pointy.
So it's a hat, and it will be pointy and kind of you know the point will come over your shoulder. I might put a little tassel on mine.
Are you going to do color work?
No, I'm doing mine plain because it's really classic that way. Some people do. They'll knit a nisselue for themselves, and they'll do white and red, and there'll be colorwork motifs, because obviously Scandinavia loves colorwork, but I just want the classic plain red. So mine's in Brooklyn Tweed Loft in the Long Johns colorway.
Gorgeous. And is it did you just make up the pattern, or is it?
No, so it's Skandir Knits.
I was watching her podcast, and I know that there was a short period where she was giving it for free, or there was.
It's still for free.
Is it still for free?
It's a free pattern on Ravelry. And if you don't know how to spell nisselue, that's Nisselue.
Just like how you say it. Nisselue. I'm going to write that down.
And that stick we wind with is a?
Nustepinne.
Nustepinne.
Yeah.
Nustepinne.
Stephanie, what are you knitting?
Well, actually, I'm knitting a store sample, and I'm having a super good time doing it. This is the Rock and Rose by Martina Bem.
Yeah.
And it's been adjusted by Melissa to take advantage of a Sweet Georgia Prismatics set, and coupled with Artfield Bell in White Sands. So they basically, Melissa chose the order of the stripes with her keen eye. And the only thing we're running into a little bit is that to get my stitch gauge, I went to a US 3 millimeter, US 3 3.25 millimeter, but it's looking a little short. So we're going to see once I get blocking, speaking of blocking, how much longer it might get. And this, like, for example,
there's 12 in the prismatic.
There's 12 in the prismatic, and it's perfect for the pattern. I am on...
Of the colors?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, there's 3. So
there's 3 more to come.
And that'll block out.
Well, and I know, like I know from knitting this, which is also fingering, also garter on the same needle size. Like this thing just went when I got it wet. So I think once there's some weight behind it,
it will. And then if we still feel it's not long enough, then I think with the white sands we'll just
keep going,
right? So you'll have a wider section of the white sands at the end.
But yeah, creative. Looking beautiful.
I have a question.
That's why you're my partner.
So a few people would like to know about your favorite counters for rows, like row counters, basically. Are there any ones that you use? Do you use an application on your phones, or what are your tricks?
My favorite one is the one you can put on your cable. Little round one.
Yeah, I like those old classics.
Yeah, I've never seen that actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just put it on your cable needle, and every time you finish your row,
you
up it, and keep going.
Yeah, here this is.
I like that. I also like the digital row counter.
Yeah,
and I just have on my finger
for a ring kind of accessory.
Yeah.
So I did have 2. I have this one from that goes with the bracelet.
Yeah.
So it's Coco Knits and Coco Knits. So for those who don't know, Coco Knits had something called the Knitter's Keep, which is a slap bracelet with the magnet, and so all your tools will snap onto the magnet and stay there while you're working. But it's recently been redesigned actually, and it doesn't come with all the extra pieces. So now it's not a Knitter's Keep. It's a. Are you okay?
I'm looking for my row counter, and it's on my darn needles.
Anyway, just to finish, the Knitter's Keep is now the Maker's Keep, so it comes on its own. It's less, it's obviously less expensive because it doesn't come with all the stitch markers and everything in a full kit. So you can just buy the slap bracelet on its own. It's called the Maker's Keep now, and then you can buy whatever you need specifically. So this one's it's got a magnet in the back, and it snaps on.
So I use that one, and then what Jocelyn was talking about, which I was looking for, but it was on my project. This is one of my favorite. Well, it is my favorite. It's tiny, and when I'm working in the round, I still use it, but I just put it on the table next to me because I can't put it on So this is by Clover. It's just a little, nothing too.
So you're not gonna laugh at me
What
when
you
I'm
can
looking for my
do.
glasses and they're on my head.
What you can do is you can put it on something like that, and then put it on your knitting at your start of row.
Well, it also
it's
from Susan Bates. It comes also with the
Hanging.
right-
The hanging one,
Yeah.
Or you could use
That
a
one I
progress
use for
keeper
knitting in the
and
round.
clip it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you really need to.
You know, I don't know what's wrong with me, but whenever I use the one that hangs, and I always make yarn overs because my yarn gets twisted around it.
really?
Yeah, really, it's
I
ridiculous.
always use that as a you know, when if you're working in the round and you need to put a stitch marker for the beginning of the round.
Yeah.
I use that.
Of course,
So
yeah.
every time I get there, I just
I know,
You
but
just
I
have
don't
to
know
slip
what's
it
wrong
in.
with me.
Okay,
You have
since
to.
we're talking about this, I don't really use row count.
I don't either.
I don't. But when I need to count,
Depends on what it.
Well, if you
When I
read
have
your- if
something
you
like
read your- if
this
you can
and
read
I
your
know
knitting.
how many
Yeah.
rows, I also use the removable stitch markers
That's
and
what-
place them
that's
every
what
time.
I do
how
every
many
10
rows.
rows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do the same.
I'm forgetful and I'll forget if I. You know, if
If
I
you
have
do
a
the
row
thing
counter,
or
I'm
not.
like, did I
Did
already
I-
touch it? What have I? But if the stitch counter's in, or
Yeah.
if the stitch marker is in my knitting,
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Okay, well
Yes.
that's 10 little
Plus,
progress
it's good for you to be
Yeah,
able
exactly.
to read your
Progress
knitting
keepers.
and be able to count rows to get
Yes.
into that
Yeah,
habit.
it's faster
Yeah.
for me
Yeah.
to just look at it and see, okay, I've
Yeah,
knit
you go
3 rounds, I
10,
need to
10,
do
yeah.
one more before the next decrease.
Yeah.
And it depends what you're doing, you know.
Yeah.
Like if it's just
Yeah.
a basic pattern, but you just
Yeah.
have to remember an increase, then that hanging is. But if it's a complex pattern and you're changing stitch, you're changing I guess row there's like 10 rows and everyone is really different. Then a row counter is.
yeah.
You know where
Yeah,
I needed it? Remember that gray and purple, gray and pink shawl?
Oh yeah, yeah.
The Hochi Locatelli one? That drove me bon. I needed
Oh,
to.
you needed it
yeah.
for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do that when I'm doing sleeves because sometimes I don't do 2 at a time. So,
Right.
and I want to ensure
Yeah.
that I have the same
same.
amount of
Yes.
rows.
Yeah.
I don't like measuring. So
The legs.
yeah.
I can't.
Legs on these
Well,
little critters,
some-
so
now
one
I
is
do
not
2 at a
longer than
time.
the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I guess for me, like I just write it down. That's my best
That
one.
too.
Is that
Yeah.
I'll always make sure I have a paper copy of the pattern that is just for that one time that I'm going to knit it, and I
Yeah.
just scribble all over it and make
Yeah.
notes with dates and times too. Like I'll even scribble
Yeah.
the time that I did it, because I find anything that's complicated enough where I wish I had the row counter. The counter isn't complicated enough for what I need to count.
Oh, thus
You know what I
should
mean?
get the
You know what, you
circa
should
row.
Well,
Yeah.
I've looked at that, but that seems like
It's really big.
too much.
It is too much, but I have to say I tried it and it worked. But
If you
it
have
took
to
me a
track
while.
different
Yeah.
things, yeah.
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 Have you guys ever tried any apps? Because I use Knit Companion,
Do you?
and there's
No.
like 3 sets of counters in there.
Oh, that
Yeah, I
sounds
forget which
interesting.
one I use because I use an app too, but then sometimes I'll do. I use I would say the paper and pen version of the Circa row like the Circa one, because what I'll do is that I'll get grid paper, and then let's say I have to do 12 rows 20 times. I'll just number 1 to 12 and then 1 to 20, and then just check off.
There's
Oh, that's
something
cool.
to it when you
Companion
do
is
it
really good
yourself and
too.
set it up this way. I understand it
remember
better
it.
than looking at something like this, especially when you come back to it. You go like, I don't remember what I
For
did.
me, that's like
No,
way too
that-
complex.
no.
But I have to say it does. That's why we got them, and then I didn't use them. But what I did was I wrote on my paper like blue is for this, yellow is for this, and it really helped me because I had a complicated pattern and I had cables. So it was like one was for my rows, the other one was for my repeats, and it does look complicated. But if
it's not.
it's
very
not if you're
simple.
tracking
Yeah.
many things. So.
Yeah.
We have all these gadgets and different projects call for different things. But if you have to track multiple things, and you need a counter, this is good. Yeah.
And I use the Clover clicking one.
Yeah.
Yeah, clicks
And
are good.
I always put in the cord in my
Do you-
neck.
That's
Oh,
how
do
you
you-
count the
and-
rows on your sock right now?
No.
No,
I
okay.
have it in my bag for when I do the toes in.
Oh,
But you put it around your neck, Kathy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
What?
these days I put it on beside me because I have the baby on my knees, and that's why I'm knitting socks because that's all the only thing I can knit right now. So.
why did you need it for the toe?
I have mummy brain.
She has
big
it.
time. And trying to figure if I decreased or I didn't. It's just
okay.
How old
Yeah.
more than she can handle?
Rosalie
right
is
now?
how old?
Rosalie is 2 years and 3 months.
Yeah. So she has you have a 2-year, 3-month
and I have
old.
Gabrielle who's a month old.
A month old. So baby brain for sure.
That's my one.
Yeah. She didn't even get over the first baby brain. Then she's on to the second.
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
I hear you, Catherine. I hear you.
Do you ever get rid of the baby brain? Because I don't think I will.
I still have baby brain. So
I just had a baby. I caught myself saying that when he was like 6 years old. I just had a baby. I can't remember. How old's your baby? 6, 8. Because I had an amazing memory before.
6 months.
But
I
it's
did
true.
too once upon a time. You noticed my baby brain.
Oh yeah, it's kind of depressing. But let's not go there
Because the baby brain becomes premenopausal brain.
And then, exactly. Premenopausal, and then it becomes dementia. It never recovers. That's why when you have your babies late, that's the problem.
That's right. We just go one into the other.
Okay, let's not scare these youngins over here.
I better get started.
I think we should go around the table. Who here don't have babies?
You know, I wanted to go back to what Jocelyn said about reading your knitting, though, because I was thinking about that. Like, I just was sitting here listening, thinking about it. Like, I think one of the reasons I don't necessarily reach for the stitch counter or whatever is I really rely on my ability to just look and go, oh yeah, that's 6 rows, or that's 12. That's an increase. It's this kind of increase. That's
training yourself.
And I think that it's something that you know. Obviously, when you're first
get
starting,
rid of the crutches.
You need the crutches because you're just trying to learn. But I think the sooner you start pushing yourself into really just starting to read your knitting, you're free.
It is true.
And you're brave because you know what you're looking at.
And you know, it also depends like what you're knitting, where you're knitting, and sometimes
course.
you choose to go there. Sometimes, and it's interesting because I'm doing a very basic pattern, but I put this on because sometimes I'm in the middle of a row and then I have to go somewhere, so I just put it so that I know when I come back which row I'm on.
Yeah.
And but then most of the time I don't because I'm like, oh yeah, you know, it becomes.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah. So I think
anything
that's a
you
really
take
good
to soccer
point.
games, you take it to hockey practice, whatever. You need something.
But that's a really good point. Is like teaching yourself to kind of evolve in your knitting knowledge and.
Like when I'm doing decreases on a sleeve, I don't place markers because I can
You can see it.
I can see it.
Yeah.
I count how many times I've decreased and.
But maybe when you're doing color work for the first time, that's when you're more inclined to maybe if you're putting it down
Color work is easy to see. Yeah,
It's easy.
Yeah,
to
it's
see.
actually
easier.
easier.
Like cables,
new
like when you're
lace
doing
work
cables.
or
Lace
like
Lace.
For sure, lace.
Yeah.
Actually, I will say with cables because I find it's hard. I'm always confused
too.
by which is the row that the cable actually
Well,
happens
Crossed
if you
on.
do it in
Crossed,
the
yeah.
round, if you do it back and forth, it's not.
Because it's always the
Mine,
right
it's like,
side.
is it this one or is it just the one above it or the one below it?
And sometimes and sometimes what I'll do is I won't mark every, but I'll put a marker on like where I started the cable. So if I get lost, I have at least a point de repère, you know, to say, okay, it's here.
Point.
Yeah.
So I try not to, but then I have a safety net.
Yeah, because Amalia can attest to that. When you have patterns that have a lot of different types of cable, the repeat is not necessarily every 6 rows.
No. Right.
Within
Do you
the
wanna
same
talk about
row,
your dress?
you'll have some that repeat at different rows.
Yeah, I did quadrillion from Pum Pum Quarterly, and I think it's 8 different cables
Happening at different times.
with different row repeats. So I used Post-its to keep track.
Or sometimes what I've seen a lot of people do, and I've suggested this before, if you have many cables and like 6-row repeats, 12-row repeats, you just kind of have to figure out the math, and then you can just copy paste, like just photocopy the chart, the section, and then put them side by side, and that way you can keep track of everything.
Oh, that's
Or if you're like me and just visually memorize the entire chart.
Don't feel bad if you can't do that. It doesn't mean you're not advanced.
I think Mona and Amelia are in a class of their own. with
And
that.
Jocelyn.
And Jocelyn.
And Diana too. I mean, you design patterns as well, Diana.
So Catherine, they want to know what method of knitting you're using so they can see you quite well. Are you throwing or
I was thinking of that question when I was driving here because I know
Oh yeah, look at that finger
Amalia called it
Continental thrower.
Continental thrower. I knit with my left hand, but the way I hold my yarn is just the way I hold my yarn. It works for me. My tension is even. It's the way, I don't know. I'm probably sure my friend who taught me how to knit didn't show me like that, but that's the way it stuck to my head and I could figure it out. So it's just
and oftentimes I always say if it doesn't hurt,
and
everything
makes the
comes
same
out right,
stitch,
and it does what it's supposed to do, there's no right or wrong way of knitting. It's like if, again, if
result oriented.
Do you find that makes it difficult to learn some new stitches?
Nope, not at all. No, it really works well for me. Obviously, when I teach knitting 101, I have to
teach it the correct way.
The
throwing.
throwing way, but I obviously don't tell them how to hold their yarn because I just tell them just figure it out for yourself, whatever works and it's comfortable and it's consistent and doesn't hurt. So that's just my way of doing it.
And I've also noticed that when I've taught beginner knitters, because we tend to always show throwing to beginners, and there was this one lady I was teaching knitting and she had a really hard time, and then I think it was like after an hour and a half, she said, well, how do you knit? And then I showed her how I knit, and I knit continental. And then right away she picked it up because she's a lefty. And then she just started knitting. It was like,
no problem.
No problem. Yeah.
Or crocheters often find continental easier too, but just because of how the yarn is held.
But I've also met crocheters who throw.
You know, it's a really good point because when I learned how to knit, the person who was teaching was continental. And I couldn't get it. I'm like,
there's got to be another way.
There's got to be another. It seems to me you got to do something like this with your yarn, you know? Like, I couldn't get it. My hands were sweaty, and after the first time, I was so discouraged. So then when I talked to the teacher, she's like, oh, well, there is another way, but I don't really know how to do it. And so I don't know. But I think she went and she got someone to show her. And then when she showed me, I'm like, oh, well, this totally makes sense, you know, it's natural. So I think it's really important to different methods work for different people. So.
Mind you, there's continent. I wish I was a continental knitter when I did that moss stitch sample for you guys. Going back and forth.
I want to point out the Guinness World Record holder for knitting speed is a
thrower.
Really? Hazel Tyndall. Hazel Tyndall from Shetland. She's second. She used to be.
Yeah,
first.
she used to be first.
Knitting facts of the 90s.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of throwers who can be fast. You have to
Yeah.
I mean, you knit with what works for you.
Yeah, but you have Hazel Tyndall. She knits with the what's it called?
The knitting belt.
Yeah, the knitting belt.
Yeah.
So she just
I've seen her knit.
Yeah, that left needle's just tucked in. Just there.
Wow. I have a question for Mona. I like this now that everyone's learning each other's names. It's very cute. So they want to know, do you have any tips for getting perfectly neat stitches or how to have a uniform gauge, especially in larger projects?
Okay. So I missed the first. Okay, Mona's answering.
Okay, yeah, we'll put on the floor.
Let's be perfectly blunt and honest. Even my stitch gauge is not always perfectly even. If I knit a sweater like this and you measure down here, you get maybe, you know, if you measure at different spaces, it's not exactly the same. It's not possible. I don't think it's possible.
It is. I'm a machine.
You a machine.
It is true. It is
perfect. I think you have to be in the same state of mind every single time you knit.
Totally.
Yes.
Well, or totally
all stressed. Yeah. No scary movies.
Where
What are you talking about? That's my most
Where I
relaxed
realize
time.
it the most is I have to have the right needles for the yarn.
Yeah.
That helps me a lot.
Makes a difference.
So right now I'm working with wool, a little bit of cashmere, and I like metal needles for that. If I work with mohair and would work with these needles, would not work out. It would be really uneven with looser stitches and tighter stitches all over the place. And also sometimes I have to, not to brag, I have to slow down my knitting so it stays even. Because if I go too fast, it's also more uneven.
I
But
know what
sometimes
you're
I have
talking
to go
about.
fast to finish. So it's,
so funny.
but
So if you have to finish, people are going to get a substandard product. Is that what
They won't know. Mona's
Sometimes when I think I'm going to run out of yarn, I knit
really
knit tighter.
fast, right?
I knit faster and tighter. So I think your state of mind really affects your knitting.
that it does, but it's also, it's really just practice.
It
Like,
is.
the more you knit, the more even it will get. It's just in the beginning you're not that even.
And for perfect stitching, good blocking.
Yes,
Good blocking.
Blocking can help a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy how this looks, but I also know after I block it, it will look
like 10 times better.
Yeah.
That is
That's true for everybody's knitting.
But a lot of people get discouraged when they knit with linen, for example.
Oh,
or
yeah.
cotton. It doesn't look like your
I always
sample.
encourage people
I
to
really
block
hate it.
it.
I'm like, did you block it yet?
Yeah.
It's like, no, just steam block the part you've done.
Well, and
And
lace.
it always looks like a dish.
Yeah, lace
It
too.
looks like
I say it looks like the dog's breakfast.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know. But I think too, your needles, like you said, Mona, is so important because it and not to try to change how you knit.
No.
But let the needles do those. So go up
Yeah.
a size, go down a size, change from bamboo to birch to nettle.
If you're knitting on a project and you feel sometimes it's just not right, it's not flowing, switch the material of the needle, try something. That's the best tip I can give you.
If I'm using straight up wool, it's metal. If I'm using mohair, it's wood.
Yeah.
Like mohair by itself. I mean,
yes,
like I said,
definitely.
mohair.
Yeah.
Maybe going back to what Catherine had mentioned, you said your friend taught you how to knit. Yeah. Is there anyone else who was taught by someone else or who was self-taught? Maybe we can talk about that. Jocelyn, how did you learn?
Oh, the neighbor upstairs taught me how to crochet and knit. I was about 6 years old.
Wow.
And my mother helped me out a little bit. And then after that, it was all the craft books and knitting books and things I could get my hands on before the internet came about.
And I think YouTube is now a really good resource for people.
Has anyone here learned off of YouTube?
I learned
various things.
Yeah.
My grandmother.
Stitches. My friend taught me how to knit, how to cast on, how to knit, and how to purl. But I learned everything else. I learned on YouTube.
Yeah. I know my husband taught me how to knit. And I quickly surpassed his level. So thankfully, I had Espace as my local yarn shop and YouTube for everything else when the store was closed.
Sasha, you learned by
my grandmother taught me how to crochet when I was in high school, and was doing crochet for a few years until I wanted to learn more. And she knew absolutely nothing about knitting or reading patterns for that matter. I would sit with her and she's like, oh, just do this and that. And I'm like, okay. And that's how I would crochet. So because I learned how to learn, I guess, the not so obvious way, it made it so much easier for me to like just pick up knitting and just look at something and like, oh, okay. And then you two helped me with the basic stitches. And from there,
I think that's it. Like a lot of people will learn the basics from either a friend or a class or a family member, but then you go on and you kind of learn on your
all
your
the
own.
other techniques. Yeah.
How about
if you're older, if you're a kid now, and I was lucky, I had a walking, talking.
Oh yeah, you had your mom.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah.
So she did all that. How about you, Carla? How did you learn how to knit?
My mom taught me how to crochet since I was like 5 years old, and then I got into knitting until I was like in high school. But yeah, I mean, I think you learn something every day. I mean, just like last month, I didn't know how to do a bind up because it was weird for me. It was new, so I was like
a specific type.
Yeah, I went to YouTube and because it was late at night, and and there you go.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
even I learned something from you, Melissa. The last podcast you did, you were doing ribs and you were complaining about one row being loose and then tightening up that stitch, and I'm going,
right?
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
Right? Didn't it just hit you like a ton of bricks that one?
Yeah, it's like.
But I learned that from another podcast. So,
yeah. There's exactly.
There's always something to learn.
How about you, Stephanie? How did you learn?
I knew a little bit. I remember very clearly I had a nanny when I was growing up who knit sweaters, and she would make me knit her sleeves. I don't think I knew that's what was happening.
Labor.
But yeah, like she'd be knitting the body of the sweater, and I'd be like, "Oh, what's that?" And she's like, "Here, would you like to try?" And every now and again, she'd make them bigger, and I'd be like, "Okay, I'll keep going." And then she'd take it back, and the next thing it'd be, she was making sleeves. But she taught me to cable. Back then with a cable needle. Now I do cable without a needle, but back then it was always hold it to the front, hold it to the back, and I was doing cables.
I cannot do it without a cable needle.
Oh, it's so good.
It depends on how wide my cables are.
Yeah. Cable needles can affect your row gauge though, so sometimes you might want to use one or not, depending on if your row gauge is really off for the pattern.
Okay.
But I forgot all about that until one day, I think I might have told this story last time, but I walked into a dentist. I was waiting for a dentist appointment. I was early, and I went into a magazine store and picked up what I thought was Vogue, and it was Vogue knitting, and sort of took it to the dentist office to flip through. Immediately realized my mistake and thought, well, that's a waste of whatever. But then there was this sweater in it. It was a James Caviello insane lace thing with like a peplum and shoulder epaulettes and whatever. But it was Sex in the City time. Everyone's wearing crazy things. And I was like, I need this sweater. And I taught myself all of the techniques in this one sweater from using that one magazine.
Really? So it was worth your money, worth your...
Oh, yeah. And I made this sweater and actually wore it out once. And had some people be like, wow, that sweater's crazy. And I was like, because like the seams were like this. I made it in like, you know, Lion Brand something. I found wrong gauge, wrong. I was just like, needles, yarn, this should work. It's going to be great. But I was addicted. And then since then I've sort of learned from books and knit nights and whoever. Yeah.
How about you, Chloe?
Yeah, my mom is a great knitter. She taught me how to knit when I was a kid, and I don't actually even remember how old I was. I know a lot of people here have like first time stories and everything. I mean, I do remember knitting on a field trip in I think grade 4, so it must have been sometime before I was 7, but I honestly don't remember learning. I feel like I've always known how to knit. But to be honest, I kind of did either garter or stockinette stuff pretty much until a couple years ago. I decided that I wanted to make a sweater, and I actually have kind of a similar experience to Sasha. My mom would just tell me, okay, do this. All right, okay, now do this. So I didn't learn how to read patterns or anything very early on, but I think that was actually a great skill, because now I'm kind of comfortable
thinking outside the box.
Figuring things out for myself, and if I think like, oh, I want to modify this, or oh, I kind of want this sweater, I'll calculate it by myself, and I don't stress about finding the perfect pattern really. So yeah, I'm happy with that experience actually.
Me too.
And Diana, how about you?
My mom taught me, I mean, like Chloe, I don't have a memory of learning to knit. I know I was probably between like 6 and 9. It was acrylic yarn and big plastic needles and all of that. And you know, I did it for a little while and then it fell out. And then later on in high school, I started picking up knitting again. And yeah, 10 years ago, I knit my first sweater, I think. And yeah, I just, from that point on.
When did you start designing?
I mean, I released my first like real pattern like 5 years ago. Okay. But before that, there were a couple of years where I was playing around with, you know, it started with modifying patterns. You know, I wanted to change some detail, or I wanted to add color work or whatever, and that moved on to thinking like, okay, well, I can use this template of this yoked sweater, because now I know how a yoked sweater is put together, and I can come up with something for myself, and I can draw a chart, and I can do all of that. So yeah.
Do we have her pattern?
I'm gonna ask you a follow-up question to that, Diana. Someone was asking, do you use gauge swatches for every project? Do you make a gauge swatch?
The honest answer is no, and here's why. If you're knitting something like a mitten, or even a hat, I knit big swatches. So I'm basically knitting something swatched size already. Okay. So, you know, if it's a small project like that and I'm not getting gauge, I rip it out and I start over.
But that hat is not small. You have to know by now if that's a good gauge. Because if you're finished, you will have a lot of aggravated people coming in saying, but it's too big, what am I supposed to do now? And you have to go, there's nothing really you can do.
Yes, to me, I don't know, to me a fingering weight hat, this is still a relatively small project.
See, that's the thing for hats. I knit a hat once 3 times because I got cocky.
Yeah.
And it was just a beret, and I thought, I've worked with this yarn before. I know if I use this needle size, it will be fine.
Yeah.
The first time it was too big. The second time it was too small.
Yes.
And then I thought, okay, I'll swatch.
See, that's what happened the first time I did a sweater for myself. But the thing I learned from that experience was right away when I figured out that the gauge isn't right, or that the size isn't right, and I need to adjust the number of stitches, I measure my gauge.
Yes, but a lot of people, once they're in that far, they don't want to rip anymore.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's like, do your swatch beforehand, because it's a half an hour. That's
But the thing that I will always do if I'm swatching for something, I use the same needles I'm going to use for the project, and I do it in the same method as the project. So if I'm knitting something flat, I swatch it flat.
Yes.
And if I'm knitting something in the round, I swatch it in the round. And that means I have a lot of swatches that I can't reuse the yarn for because they've been cut.
Pattern as well.
Yeah.
In the stitch pattern as well.
Yeah.
I think the longer you knit you get to know your own gauge. So for example, this sweater that I was casting on tonight, it calls for 100 stitches on a 3.5mm needle to get a gauge of 20 stitches, for example. I know that as a tight knitter, a 3.5mm is going to give me a much tighter gauge than that. And I know I've knit enough hats where I've had to cast on 100 stitches that I know that I need a 4mm needle. So I don't even bother to swatch. I just know, okay, I have to go up.
I do that too.
Yeah, but that's because you paid attention to what you were doing and you learned from what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Which is why one of these journals is a great idea.
But a lot of people, they knit a hat in one yarn and they think they like the other yarn and don't realize it's a chunky now and it's not the worsted. And they go for the hat, they come back and say, why is it too big? I was like, because your gauge is different from what you've done
That's
before.
why I think a good thing is like either to have a little notebook or the journal to write it in, or your pattern. So what I do is like on the pattern, I'll put the needle size I used and the yarn, and I'll know that it was for that gauge. And so when I have to knit something again that is a similar, like on a 4, I'll be, oh, let me go check that pattern because I remember. So I think if you document it, it's going to help you to remember that eventually you know yourself.
And and it's going to be important for beginner knitters to always swatch.
Yeah. I mean, we say
have
that.
Success.
Yeah, we say that, and you know, it's up
Otherwise
to you
it's
to do what you want.
Yeah.
But it is
It's
the
discouraging.
problem.
I mean, in this case, I didn't swatch, but I did go back and say, okay, if I knit, this is Brooklyn Tweed Loft, I've used it before. If I do it on a 3.25mm needle, what's my gauge going to be?
You have an
and I'm obsessive about documenting my projects on Ravelry for that reason, because it's all there.
This is something you have to like really tell people, because otherwise they go, oh, she just goes and does it. I can do it too.
Oh,
and oftentimes we get that.
I've been burned by that.
Yeah, but people will come in and say, oh, well, what needle did you use?
No. I think that's why Ravelry is a good tool to keep track of things if you're not inclined to journal it and write it down. I'm gonna throw it back to Melissa and Lisa because it's 9:29.
Ooh.
And
Wow.
9:30.
Oh.
And just say a few words if you want.
Oh, we're wrapping it up?
Yeah.
Wow.
You're
getting into it, eh, Melissa? You're gonna hear us for another hour.
I'm not sure if YouTube allows us to go much longer.
Yeah,
is
I
my
know,
idea.
I know.
I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Well, were there any other pressing questions that we didn't answer, or
just like there's a question about knitting retreats and like if you ship to the U.S. So there's certain things
I mean,
maybe we'll address at a later time.
Yeah.
Yes, they do ship to the U.S. for that
worldwide. And we're thinking about a knitting retreat.
We're thinking Annie is kind of trying to push us in that direction, but
well, I'm pushing Annie. Annie's pushing Lisa.
I'm trying to coordinate it.
So, and if it happens, I mean, we're looking at fall of 2018. So, if anyone would be interested in that, just let us know.
I've gotten multiple comments about that from both episodes now, so it's interesting.
About retreats?
Yeah. It's it's something we've talked about and we've toyed with, but
I mean, it's a great destination city.
It is. We have a great city for that. And how Melissa and I operate is that we have lots of ideas and people give us lots of ideas. And we really go with our gut to say, when's it time? When's it right? Because we're both go-getters. We're both hard workers. When we decide something, we throw ourselves into it. Yeah. And so we have to decide, is that right? So we're really good now at gauging. It's not the right time. Let's back up. Let's do that. So it's definitely on our radar. And now with the help of maybe Annie trying to help us move that forward, it could be more of a possibility.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing about a retreat is that it takes months and months to plan, right?
Yeah.
So
you have to get
ball rolling.
And
but anyway, it's on the radar.
It's on the radar. Yeah. And we just wanted to also say we're not going to be doing another podcast before Christmas. So this is kind of our last little pre-Christmas, and then
but we'll be back early January.
Yeah. Oh yeah, early January.
Early January, right?
Yes, early. Well, we'll be back in January. Let's just say that. Yeah. And I really also, we want to take the opportunity to really thank our staff because it's incredible that we only have one person who's not here, Françoise, and she has a very important reason not to be here.
It's so funny. I mean, we invite everybody to join us for these live knit nights, and we think, okay, we'll invite everybody, and then maybe half can make it, right? 12 people here.
I know, it's quite something.
Everybody,
Carmen wasn't able to because she had a family event. And Stephanie. And Stephanie. Yeah, I think she's a little shy.
Yeah,
so we have to work on that.
Yeah. But I make up for shy Stephanie by being totally not shy Stephanie.
And not everybody here works in the store. We have like Jocelyn is a teacher and a designer for us, and Sasha's doing the knit-alongs, and she was on break because of her maternity leave, so not too sure what's happening. Catherine, you're going to be coming back soon
still
and
teaching.
joining us, so you're still teaching. Yeah. So everybody is still involved in some way. So I just want to really thank all of you here for taking the time on a Sunday evening to be with us.
Yes. And thank everybody for watching. Are you about to stop it, Emma?
No.
huge thank you to anyone who tuned in and sent a question in, and for all your support this year. You know, as we sign off for our last sort of
Video.
YouTube thing before the holidays, and we wish everybody a great holiday season, and we'll see you again live in January.
Yeah, in the new year. Great. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.